If you're laid off, don't ghost your coworkers. Layoffs create survivor's guilt. If you liked your team, send a goodbye note with your personal contact info. Your next job might come from the people still trapped inside the building you just left. Hi, I'm Ayers, and this is Money Changes Everything. So you got laid off. Now what? Welcome to the second edition of Jobtober. The tiny little pumpkins are taking over your grocery store window display, and for many of us, it's open enrollment season. In this 5-part series, we'll explore how to make your job work for you and how to improve your life at work. Well, at least the financial part of it. Key takeaways. A layoff can feel like the apocalypse, but it doesn't have to be. Building up an emergency fund was made for this exact moment to give you a little cushion while figuring out your next move. Before you leave your company, make sure that you're leaving with as much money in your pocket as possible and few headaches. Getting laid off feels like a gut punch. Even if you saw it coming, even if the headlines portended it, it's still brutal. Maybe you're one of those people who has survived multiple rounds of layoffs, and then suddenly one day it happens to you. Twitter, Google, Meta, Amazon, Zoom, tech giants shed employees quarterly when the budgets don't work, sometimes hiring the same people back months later. It can feel like whiplash to be a modern worker, so strap in. Behind every restructuring memo is a real person staring at their laptop, refreshing LinkedIn, wondering how long their savings will last. I felt this acutely when a good friend who happens to be a client texted me in May to say she had been laid off. Reading her words, I could feel the sadness, fear, and disappointment between the lines. I shot back, "I'm so sorry. Minor setback though, that's what the emergency fund is for." Still, it's ugly to be laid off, especially when it's done in an abrupt way. "Sorry you can't access any of your files. HR will be in touch." It's cold, and it makes you feel disposable. It makes you feel like that project you've been working on for months was meaningless. It's demoralizing at best and nihilistic at worst. What's the point of it all, after all? After the initial state of sadness and shock, my friend soon learned that she had a generous severance and was given health insurance coverage for a few months, which was helpful. She'd even tried to hold onto her restricted stock units, her RSU vest, so she could receive more compensation, but ultimately wasn't successful. But even with the severance payout and health insurance, she was still worried about spending down the emergency fund she'd saved for so diligently. But that's exactly what it's there for, to buy yourself some time and give yourself some breathing room. We had set our emergency fund target at 4 months of living expenses to plan for this exact moment. This is the emergency we've been training for, which, due to the severance package of 3 months' salary, ended up being not much of an emergency after all. A layoff is your emergency fund's time to shine. It's saying, "Put me in, coach, I'm ready." So this friend ended up taking a real month off. She traveled a bit and then settled into the grueling job hunt. At first, she told me it was bleak. She found postings for jobs that seemed like a perfect fit, only to apply and hear crickets. Then her network kicked in and replies started coming in. 2 months later, she had 2 great offers. I saw her at a party recently, and she couldn't wait to tell me about the job she'd accepted. Her excitement was contagious. Honestly, I felt like I had gotten the job too. And then she said something that stuck with me. It had been the best summer of her adult life. That's the paradox. A layoff can feel like the end of the world, but with a little cushion, it can be just a temporary blip in an otherwise fabulous year. If you have some time, pick up the novel Severance by Ling Ma, not the HBO show, though both are about a dystopian workplace. It's a darkly funny meditation on modern work and the absurdity of tying your entire identity to your job. I highly recommend reading it while you're technically between opportunities. So yes, if you get laid off, you're allowed to wallow for a bit, but then it's time to act. Face the reality of your savings. If you don't have an emergency fund, welcome to the crash course. It's time to cancel the subscription boxes, stop paying for apps you don't use, and maybe learn to cook again. A temporary period of cutting back may be necessary if you don't have a cushion. Cash preservation is the goal. Deal with your equity before it disappears. Stock options and RSUs are not monopoly money. They're either a ticket to future wealth or a financial sinkhole, depending on how you handle them. There are different types of stock options companies offer, and some things to think about when you decide what you should do next. For ISOs, those are incentive stock options, you usually have 90 days to exercise after termination. Miss it and they turn into NQOs, non-qualified options, more on this below, or you simply forfeit them. Don't wait until day 89 to figure out what you should do. Talk to someone who can help you now. NQOs. Exercising your NQO options triggers an immediate tax bill. If the shares aren't liquid, meaning your company is private and there's nowhere to sell them, you've just bought yourself a very expensive asset. Proceed with caution. RSUs. Vested shares of RSUs are yours. Unvested ones will vanish after you leave the company. That's what happened to my friend. Private company RSUs with a second trigger require patience. You'll need to wait for an event to happen, like an IPO or an acquisition, to be able to sell your shares. No cash to exercise your stock options? Companies like ESO Fund or EquityZen can front you the money in exchange for a chunk of your upside. Working with these companies can be better than watching your options evaporate. Don't panic about your 401k. Your retirement money is fine. You can leave it where it is or roll it to an IRA later. Just don't cash out unless you want to hand 30 to 40% of what you cashed out to the IRS in taxes. Seriously, the money is fine where it is. Just make sure you can still log into your 401k plan account after you've left the company and that your name and address are correct and up to date. That is not throwaway advice here, folks. If your name and address don't match, you could be sending a check to your ex-boyfriend's apartment. Also, if your employer offers a 401k match, make sure to check whether your employer's match was vested and track year-to-date contributions so you don't over-contribute at your next job. Protect your health coverage. Job gone, health insurance gone. Fuck. COBRA is an option, but it's usually prohibitively expensive because your employer is no longer footing the bill. Your state's marketplace or healthcare.gov usually offer cheaper plans. However, if you're mid-treatment or pregnant or can't switch providers, then COBRA might be the way to go. If your partner has coverage, consider joining their healthcare plan, even as a domestic partner if the insurer allows. Just don't go uninsured. Please, medical bankruptcy is the dumbest hill to die on. Tie up loose ends. Download every pay stub from the portal or request them if your company is old school, especially if you had equity vesting. Your tax preparer will thank you later. Get a human HR contact before you leave. You'll need them in the future to get old pay stubs, potentially figure out health insurance, roll over your 401k, and more. Apply for unemployment. Severance usually doesn't disqualify you. Check your vacation payout. Unlimited PTO is HR's way of saying, we owe you nothing. Update your address for your W-2. The IRS does not care that your former company ghosted you. Tips and tricks. Negotiate your severance. Most people don't realize severance is negotiable. If you've been a high performer or have unvested equity about to hit, ask for more compensation. Ask to double your severance package. Usually it's paid out as months of salary. The worst case scenario is that they say no. Best case, you buy yourself more months of breathing room. Cash out your FSA, your flexible savings account, before you lose it. That use it or lose it rule isn't a joke when it comes to FSAs. If you have $800 left, go buy new glasses, stock up on contact lenses, or order a year's supply of ibuprofen from fsastore.com before your last day. Don't ghost your coworkers. Layoffs create survivor's guilt. If you liked your team, send a goodbye note with your personal contact info. Your next job might come from the people still trapped inside the building you left. Ask about outplacement services. Some companies pay third-party firms to help laid-off employees polish resumes, rehearse interviews, and connect with recruiters. It's basically career coaching on the company's time. Take it. You could probably use a little accountability and structure now that your days aren't filled with meetings that should have been emails. Watch out for clawbacks. If your employer paid for grad school, a professional certification, or even relocation, check your contract. Some companies make you repay it if you leave too soon. This is not the kind of surprise bill you want 6 months into unemployment. Check your state's rules on unemployment. Some states reduce your unemployment if you're collecting severance, others don't. Filing 1 week late could cost you hundreds of dollars. Bureaucracy is a beast. Get started now. Don't sign away your rights too fast. That separation agreement, read it carefully. Sometimes they hide non-compete clauses, NDA landmines, or terms that limit future severance eligibility. These agreements are worth running past an employment lawyer if anything looks sketchy. You are not your layoff. A layoff feels like the apocalypse, but it doesn't have to be. With an emergency fund, some clear-eyed planning, it could be just a chapter break. My friend turned her layoff into the best summer of her adult life. Yours might not feel like that at first, but give it time. The truth is, jobs are temporary. Money is the parachute. It buys you choices, space, and maybe even freedom, which is not the worst consolation prize while you wait for your next gig. And here's my parting shot. Layoffs feel like endings, but most of the time, they're just plot twists.